My name is Andrew Gaylor and I am the Weapons Team Manager, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you to this online intelligence briefing. Today, Fenella McGurty, who is the Principal Research Analyst for Jane's Defence Budget, together with Shan Paul, Senior Research Analyst, Weapons Forecasts, and Jayesh Dhingra, Senior Research Analyst and Editor of Jane's Ammunition Handbook, will together present a session entitled Turkey, Weapons Production and Procurement. The IHS Jane's Intelligence Briefing Programme will consist of approximately 40 events during 2018 and is available to all customers of Jane's Intelligence Centre and module products, including the Markets Forecast products. But just before we start, I would like to highlight the information used to compile today's presentation seminar. You will automatically from a variety of Jane's content, devices, but particularly Jane's Markets Forecast, Jane's Defence Budget, please click the telephone icon found on the right side. Now, on with the presentation, Turkey Weapons Production and Procurement. And just to mention what we're going to be talking about, we'll initially look at the Turkish Defence Budget Forecast for the 2018 to 2027 period, the Turkish weapons market for the same period, and then we'll pick out some of the ground-launched weapons forecasts and some of the key elements within each of ground, air-launched and naval elements before summarising. So that concludes everything, and I'll now hand you over to Fenella McGurty, who will lead in.
Thank you, Andrew. So, cracking on with the defence budget, Turkey's spending of between $12 to $13 billion places it about 20th largest globally and the 8th largest in NATO behind the US, UK, Canada, Germany, Italy, Canada and Spain. In terms of past trends, growth in the total defence budget has been quite volatile if you look at the black line on the chart there. If we were to just look at the core Ministry of National Defence budget, then the trend would be more stable. But on the next slide, I will go into the additional funding that we add into the official defence budget in order to bring the Turkish figure in line with the NATO definition. So in terms of the volatility, surges in spending are quite often followed by cuts in real terms. And really it's this high level of historic inflation, which has been between 8 and 10%. And that's been a persistent issue.
Expenditure is the Navy, with an estimated spend of $1.586 billion. The major programs for the Navy during this period include the indigenously developed Akyar torpedo, which is expected to be part of the Type 214 submarines, first of which is to enter service by 2021. Another indigenous program of importance is the Atmaka anti-ship missile, which is considered to be the replacement for the Harpoons in service. At last, coming to the Army, it will be the least spending among the Turkish forces, with a 10-year forecast estimated at $931 million. The major programs for the Army include the TRG-122 and TRG-300 precision-guided rockets, and the UMTAZ anti-tank missile. We also have a multi-service included in our forecast. This is for the Hisar surface-to-air missile system, since it will be used by both the Army and the Navy. Next slide, please. Moving on to the major players in the Turkish weapons industry. Turkey's commitment towards having self-sufficiency in arms production has led to the growth of the domestic defense industry. The indigenization effort has seen the share of local suppliers increase. Among them, Roketsan is clearly the leader with a market share of 33%. It is the flag bearer of the country's missile.
Yes, this would indicate Turkish Navy continues to operate naval weapons such as the Harpoon. And the reason may be because the domestic development programs may not be ready to be delivered by the time the newer naval assets get commissioned. Another example is the Akyar torpedo development for the Reis-class Type 214 submarines. Turkey is developing the 533mm heavy torpedo to meet a naval requirement under the National Heavy Torpedoes Development Project, which is known as Akyar. South Korea is providing technical support to Akyar, leveraging the K731 White Shark torpedo. The sonar system will be developed by Tubitak, while the guidance systems and warheads will be provided by Roketsan.
Thank you to Fenella, Shan and Jayesh. Just to summarise then, the weakness of the lira the high inflation that Turkey is continuing to experience, they're inevitably going to influence its ability to increase its defence budgets despite aspirations and political rhetoric. That said, Turkey sees its self-sufficiency as a priority, certainly in the weapons domain, and that's been evidenced by the investment that they've put into and the willingness to purchase locally produced defence equipment, and that could well have a self-fulfilling effect. The more they buy locally, the more they're going to have to invest and therefore put back into development. Turkey's also entered a period of major re-evaluation in an attempt to transform itself into a technology-friendly sector. Foreign contractors should now be offering local content, technological cooperation, investment and research and development into this market. Even though Turkey's ambitious programs to develop indigenous weapon systems are advancing with some success, the pace is slow. The local technology expertise continues to depend on combat-proven foreign subsystems and technology. And with Turkey's aim to supplant that existing foreign weapon systems, the domestic weapon systems have to prove their operational capability, and they need to be prepared to make a modular design available for further upgrades. Likewise, exports are a key priority, and Turkey has a unique position as a bridge between the European and Western worlds, and also into those Asian and Islamic countries that either cannot buy Russian or Chinese weapons or may choose not to, and Turkey may therefore be the ideal choice for them. However, the defence market is hugely competitive, and at present Turkey is striving to get itself level on technology, whereas the US, China and Russia are still moving ahead. And this may prove to be a struggle for them to be able to keep pace with that development. That said, the weak lira against a strengthening dollar will make pricing attractive, and when you combine that with lower production costs in the US, there's still plenty of scope to expand in the export markets. The Turkish long-range air defence requirement is an area that is clearly being watched very closely. Turkey's appeared to opt for a project definition study with Eurosam for a homegrown system, and at the same time they're purchasing the Russian S-400 to fill in that operational gap until such time as the former completes its development, which is expected, as mentioned, to be in 2025. However, as we've already seen, anything to do with these programs have a number of steps that they have to take, and there is potential for changes in this. In the longer term, the domestic manufacturer's capability to produce the desired technology with their domestic resources within the time and budget does look to be quite challenging. There are a number of future opportunities in the Turkish weapons market, and these are estimated to be worth up to about $2.2 billion US. Anti-aircraft, anti-missile and multi-target weapons are the major contributors in their potential opportunities, and they total up to a value of $1.56 billion US. And the remainder is likely to be spent on torpedo systems, guided projectiles and missile launch systems. So within the whole weapons domain, there's clearly a political will to look outside of NATO and to look for partners globally for their technology, investment and opportunities. What remains to be seen is if that interoperability will be too big a hurdle. Indeed, as the Secretary-General of NATO mentioned only very recently in a rather telling understatement, this would be difficult. And has been mentioned already, there is the potential for action by the US and the necessity for the US technology incorporating some of those weapon systems to have an effect should the US decide that they wish to impose sanctions against Turkey for that S-400 buy. What is certain is that Turkey will remain a fascinating country for its weapon systems, its strategic location, its cultural influences, and the continued conflicts both on and around its borders and in the region are going to make it a very interesting country to keep an eye on, and metaphorically it will stay on the radar for the foreseeable future. We look forward to welcoming you to future online briefings, and our next online briefing, which is East meets West, Central and Eastern Europe Aviation, looking at the supply chain, being held on Wednesday the 28th of March. Thank you very much and goodbye.